Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. Join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show, where we bring you interesting guests and touch on interesting topics, at least I hope so. And today's topic is the rise of co-living spaces and what investors should watch out for. So let me first tell you what is a co-living space. One of the companies that we have a relationship with for our investors is called PadSplit. And what's the idea here? If you think about it, there are properties like single family homes especially that have, like in the first setup, 4-bedroom, 3-bath. But if you really look at how the space is used in modern houses, oftentimes you have like a living room and a dining room and maybe even a den. And if you didn't really necessarily need those living room, dining room, dens and stuff like that as a normal family, but you wanted to maximize the space of people using that house, you could convert those spaces into additional bedrooms. So let's just say you keep the majority of the living room, but you convert the den and the family room into, or the dining room if you have one, into 2 additional bedrooms. So now you have a 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. A co-living space is considered where instead of renting the whole house to a family, you're renting each individual bedroom or the combination of a bedroom and a bathroom to different people. Why would you want to do this and who would be interested in this? Number one, if you imagine you could have this 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom house and across all of these bedrooms, you would charge $600 a month. Kind of in a sense, a little bit like a dormitory, right? So that's $3,600 gross rent per month from that house. And in many areas, a regular house with 4 bedrooms, 3 baths would not be able to get that much rent. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing is who would be your tenants? And one of the things that is kind of an interesting development, why PadSplit is so successful in their model, is because if you think about it, if somebody comes out of high school, for example, let's say they even tried college and they determined it's not for me, right? Or they never even tried it because they didn't have the grades or they didn't want to move or whatever the reason is. So now they go and find a job. They work in a restaurant or they work for like one of the areas where PadSplit is big is in Florida. So let's say they work at Disneyland or they work in a retail store or so forth. But that's basically their first job. If they were to go out, they don't want to live with their parents anymore, and they were to go out and try to get an apartment, even a small studio or 1-bedroom apartment, similar to what we described to get a 1-bedroom with a bathroom in our single-family home. If they go out there and let's say it were to cost the same $600, what they would have to show is number one, a background check, which they probably don't have. Number two, a credit history, which they probably don't have. Number three, a credit score, which they probably don't have. And if they have one, most of the time they did something that was not very smart because they didn't have any kind of financial education when they were young and still in high school or early college. So they may have like a credit card that has a balance on it, but not good for a credit score. So they don't have that either. And the most important thing that they most of the time don't have is, if you think about it, almost every apartment organization that you go to nowadays and you want to rent a place, they ask you at least 2 and in most cases 3 times rent as a security deposit. And somebody who just started that job probably doesn't have $1,800 to pay as a security deposit and then immediately start paying $600 a month in rent. So this kind of shared living space or co-living space gives these people an opportunity to build all those things, to get banking, to get a proper background check, because every month they pay their $600 in the co-living space in the house that we're using for that. We report to the credit agencies that they paid their rent. So that builds their credit score, that builds their background check, that builds their credibility. And if they make more, enough to put a little bit of money aside, they can actually take this time in the co-living space to put money aside for the security deposit. Now, the other thing you also have to keep in mind, if somebody comes out of their home with their parents and wants to get into a space, the co-living spaces are fully furnished. So our high school graduate would not only have to pay something like $1,500 or $1,800 as security deposit, but if they get an apartment, most of the time the apartment is empty and they would have to pay probably at least a few $1,000s to furnish it. So that's another thing, to put money aside while you're living in a co-living space, to have the ability to put money aside so that you can ultimately furnish your own apartment. So those are all the reasons why there is such a rise, because in a sense what has happened is rents have gone up a lot and the requirements to even be allowed as an applicant for an apartment have gone up a lot. Now, this is also due to the fact that a lot of people in the past misused that privilege of getting an apartment. They had parties in it, they didn't pay, they didn't make the proper security deposit and so forth. So what did apartment operators do? They made the criteria harder and harder and harder because they want to have tenants who have some skin in the game. If you pay $2,000 and then you stop paying your rent, they get you evicted, then your history is completely screwed. You will never get another apartment in that jurisdiction, and your money is gone. Your deposit is gone, right? So that's part of the reason why these additional costs have appeared, and co-living shows that you are a potentially good tenant. And one thing I can tell you, by the way, if we're talking about pad split, if you don't pay your pad split payment for your room and the bathroom combination you have in that single family home, you're out immediately, right? You're basically on a month to month, and if 1 month payment isn't there on time, you're immediately out. And everybody knows that. So it is basically a transition that has evolved and become a business because rents are high, requirements to get into a regular apartment are high, and costs to furnish an apartment are high. And pad split is basically providing a transitional opportunity to still get into your own space, save some money, and then get ready for your own apartment. So I hope that explains it. And for anybody who is interested to take one of their properties and convert it, please let me know, get in touch, and we help you to get with the right people at Pad Split to see if your property is in a good location and suitable for that kind of a conversion. So that's it for today. Be well and stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.